Hi, welcome back. It's part 3. Everybody get excited. Hold on, I'm going to put the music on because I forgot to. Hey! We're going to be done. This is achievable. I can't believe we're almost done. Let's just get going. Look at this. Look at how many we've done. How many are left? Hoo boy. First up is Elliott Smith's what is this one? This is Either Or. Correct? I don't know their names. It's not EXO. It's not Figure 8. It's not the self-titled. It's Either Or. Okay. We did it. Despite not knowing shit about it, I'm gonna give it a B. I do actually know this album. I've listened to it. This is probably his most beloved one, with like Between the Bars and shit on it. I like Sad Acoustic Boys. Sorry. Haters need not apply. I don't know. Deftones' White Pony, an excellent album. We're gonna give that an A. I love Deftones dearly. I think the marriage of dream pop / shoegaze in metal music is an incredibly appealing one to me. The fact that there are basically new metal things in their discography that I like, I think is entertaining to me. I think that makes me happy. The fact that new metal, there's at least one band in new metal that people can be like, they're the Beatles. They're basically the Beatles. I like this album quite a bit. Not my favorite. My favorite is, weirdly enough, Diamond Eyes. I know that's not like it's an incredibly popular album to put on a pedestal, but it's the one that I was introduced to. It has like some of my favorite songs by them, and you know. I think that's where they're at their most, like, I don't know, My Bloody Valentine, simple music, like simple songs that are pretty straightforward, but with like really, sometimes some really ear-catching, like, dissonance and effects and trickery. Similarly, A is Carly Rae Jepsen's Emotion. This album, I think, oh god, this is gonna sound stupid. Emotionally, I think this album's like an S, but I think it's an A in terms of just like, these days. I just think it's an A. But in 2015, when it came out, shit, dude, I was listening to it all the time. I memorized basically the entire thing, which is, I think I just got caught in the same thing that a lot of people did, which is like, here's an album that is unequivocally bubblegum pop, that's that sickly sweet pop music that's almost exclusively about love. Carly Rae Jepsen, admittedly, like, I think she even says that she just writes about love, or topics related to it. But it's a well-crafted album. It's got a lot of great tunes on it. It's varietal. It's not just one note. There's like a fun amount of like nostalgia, like 80s, like throwback kind of stuff. But then also, there's just, some fun tunes on it. Sue me for liking an album because I enjoyed listening to it. But yeah, these days, not listening to it as much. I usually just listen to it whenever I want something that I'm familiar with and easy to, digest. Side B is a great supplement to this album. I only like 4 songs off of Side B, probably, though. And then she just came out with a new album, and I've only listened to it once, but I like it. The middle, I think, kind of sags down a bit, but we'll see what time has to say about that one. The Brave Little Abacus. Hold on. Just got back from the discomfort. We are all right. Sorry, I had to look that up. This album's excellent. Probably the most, I don't listen to a lot of Midwest emo-y kind of stuff these days. But this is probably the one that, has aged in my mind the best. Because even if you're not, too terribly into the musicality of it, or rather the subjects of the songs and the lyrics and the vocals and stuff, there's still quite a bit to get from it. But, sometimes you are in the mood for that stuff, and this album, I go to it often, whenever that's my mood. I also like Masked Dancers. R.I.P. Brave Little Abacus. There's a motorcycle driving by. Caius. I think it's Caius. I don't know why I doubted myself. I should have just sounded confident in my decision. Welcome to Sky Valley. I have this album. Love it. Big fan. This is a B. Yeah, it's just... I can't say anything too terribly specific about it just because it's been a while, but in 12th grade, my friend wanted me to play Supa Scoopa and Mighty Scoop in the talent show, and unfortunately I was busy at the time, so I couldn't make the plans to learn the song and perform, or rehearse it with him and play it. And also I'm still not much of a, he wanted me to play it on drums, and then he was going to play guitar, and then my friend was going to play bass, another friend. And I like playing drums. I'm not good at it, though. I'm okay at it. Some song, it takes time. It's not I don't have a drum kit right now, so I wouldn't be able to practice regularly. And that's kind of a similar situation that I was in there. I was I can't, I would have to go over to your house to really sit down and learn it. And that's just a lot of work. You could probably just find somebody who's prepared to do it. I don't actually know if they ended up playing it. I never went to the talent show. I had somebody else from the newspaper class. Write the article about the talent show. I instead went to go watch some play. We usually had to we took turns doing stuff like that, and that was the one that I did. So anyway, Cosmogramma by Flying Lotus. I'm also gonna give this a B. My relationship with this album is kind of like a bell curve. I started out kind of confused and unlike some of these other albums, which I said were really foundational electronic albums, this one, even though I picked it up at a very similar time frame, this one I found it a little hard to grab onto. It doesn't help that it starts out with just a bunch of mishy mashy noise, and there's some good jams in there. I really like Zodiac shit, and that Thundercat song's good. The Tom York song's good. Good stuff. But like, I don't know. I think I might be a fly low, like a contrarian, because my favorite Flying Lotus album is Until the Quiet Comes. I think Until the Quiet Comes is a masterpiece, but people kind of just give it like the yeah, that's good treatment. Like, honestly, if you were to tell me like which albums of his would I want to listen to, keep in mind that I haven't listened to anything past You're Dead. I don't know. I don't actually know where he's at these days. Haven't checked in. I would say Until the Quiet Comes first. Then Pattern plus Grid World. That actually helped me get into Flying Lotus more than Cosmogramma did. Los Angeles maybe behind that. You're Dead behind that. Haven't listened to You're Dead very much, actually. I kind of I don't know, I bounced off of it, but there's still some things that I like off of it, so it's kind of like in a weird middle space. You ever have that with an album, like something that kind of like you didn't go back to listen to it, but you're like not necessarily like you're not negative on it, you're just like, I didn't listen to it enough. That's that. This is The Death of Pablo. Hold on, I've only listened to this once, and it was because it was like a flash in the pan. Hold on, it's the Pablo Collective. This was like a flash in the pan, like thing on RYM for a bit there. It like got really high on the leader, or like on the chart when it came out, and then I think it immediately dropped once people started to sniff out its scent. I thought it was pretty silly. It's essentially just, what's the story behind it? It's like somebody on the MU board, like somebody on MU thought like, hey, I had this dream where instead of The Life of Pablo coming out, it was called The Death of Pablo, and they like basically gave their interpretation of what the death of Pablo would be, and I guess a group of people on the board banded together and created essentially what that person thought would exist. And it's, I don't know, it's just like, it's funny to me that exists. I remember there being some moments of it that are like genuinely fascinating, but yeah, it's I don't know. I appreciate I admire the like drive that a group of people had to make this very specific thing happen, but it's that I don't remember too much about it besides the concept itself. I remember it being pretty noisy and stuff, but given the conceit of the album, I wasn't necessarily falling for that, Anyway, Snowings. Is this Fuck Your Emotional bullshit? I'm assuming it is, because I'm pretty sure Snowing only had one album. If this is Fuck Your Emotional bullshit, then I will happily give it a B. similar to Brave Little Abacus. I feel like this is an emotive hardcore, whatever you want to call it, album or EP, really, that is probably pretty enjoyable to watch or to listen to these days. It's really high energy. It's got a lot of like angular mathy guitar stuff, twinkly, whatever you want to call it, and then just like a distinct vocalist yelling about drinking and being sad and stuff like that. Yeah, I liked it. I went to a snowing show. It was snowing 1994. Algernon Cadwallader and somebody else, I think. It might have just been those three. And it was cool. Haven't been to a lot of these people's shows. I don't go to a lot of shows. I should. Machine Girl. Because I'm young, arrogant, and hate everything you stand for, I think is what it's called. It's by Machine Girl, and I almost want to refer to it as its album cover, because its album cover is so fucking, like, you look at it and you're like, oh yeah, that's that album. You know, you don't have to know the title. This is probably the most recent thing on here that I've listened to. Like, I'm sure maybe some of this stuff, I don't know how old it is, but a lot of this stuff is, 90s, 70s, even like 2000s. But this came out last year, I think. And I listened to it, and it sounds like if Stepmania was being played on a computer engulfed in flames. And it has a song called Bullet Hell, which sounds a lot like Manabu Namiki's discography or gamography, whatever you want to refer to it as. And I just think that's fucking swell. Real talk though, it's like a really vulgar and political album as far as I'm aware. I didn't listen to the lyric, or I didn't read along with the lyrics or anything like that. I just kind of let it wash over me, because it's a lot to take at once. It's very noisy. It's very chaotic. It's gabber and like hardcore punk, also some industrial, and like people say death grips whenever they talk about it, but like I don't necessarily want to do that, because I think that's a bit reductive, and death grips is like the penultimate or like the prototypical as death grips as the prototypical industrial hip-hop noise band is. That's one of the things that made me stop listening to them, because that shit got old. So go listen to this if you're into what I said. It's small and cool and worth your time. Opeth. This is what's this album called? I know. I don't have to look it up. Opeth is Opeth's. I have to look it up. I'm sorry. Do I not have this? That's weird. I could have sworn I had this. I'm gonna look it up on the internet. It's not Morning Rise. It's not My Arms Your Hearse. I know those albums. Blackwater Park. It's Blackwater Park. That is what it's called. I'm gonna give this a C. I haven't listened to it in a long time, and I remember thinking it was like a pleasant, a surprisingly pleasant progressive metal album. You know, progressive metal as a discipline, you know, has its fair share of unpleasantries, especially these days. Like, not like 2001 was probably the golden age for progressive metal compared to fucking now. So yeah, I remember thinking it was fine. I really like Morning Rise though. Morning Rise is my favorite Opeth album, although I haven't listened to Opeth in a while, so I can't say with any confidence if that's still the case. So yeah, continuing on, this is Brockhampton 3. Saturation 3, excuse me. I'm gonna give this a B, a B. High B, low A. Emphasis on B. I would give Saturation 2 an A. And if I could just take like my, 20 favorite songs from all three Saturations, I'd probably give it like an A or maybe even an S. I think they're awesome. It's just that Saturation by like design was just a lot of directions at once, you know. It was kind of what they were. It was the entire, concept. Saturate people with them, you know. It's, this album has some of their most melodic stuff, some of their most like musical, not musical, but like, melodic and singy songs, and like songs as in, we're gonna try and shape a song, although you wouldn't know it because it starts out with boogie, which is like it's I like to call it the sequel to Annie Up because I think that's what it sounds like. And then but Saturation 2 I think has more of like that good rap shit, and has some songs on it that are just really, it has like their strongest songs on it. This one I think is more consistent maybe, but even people say Saturation 2 is not consistent, like it has both their best songs and their worst songs, or at least like bad songs or less than stellar songs. I like it all for the most part. I like Sweet. I like Champ or whatever. That one song that people get confused by, I like. But yeah, Brockhampton, make another good thing, please. Your last one wasn't great. I didn't like it that much. Yeah. This is My Bloody Valentine, You Made Me Realize EP. You Made Me Realize is one of their best songs that isn't in like that shoegaze bent. But overall, I think this EP is just okay. Probably my like third or fourth favorite thing in the My Bloody Valentine canon. So yeah, You Made Me Realize is great though. I'm gonna put London Calling back here because of the like seminal albums that like you're required to at least know in order to be a popular or to be a music person. It's probably the biggest blight on, or like blemish in my otherwise super stellar knowledge base. I don't know. Never tried to look up Clash. I know I recognize this album cover, and there's probably several songs on it that I recognize. I just, didn't ever pull the trigger on that. This is Fishman's, and then it's just the date of the concert that it was recorded. Right? That's 1998, December 28th. And then some Japanese characters that I don't understand. This is a B. People on the RYMs love Fishman's. It's like their favorite. It's like their ride or die. This album is in the top 100, which is really bizarre when you consider that the company it's sharing is like Radiohead and Pink Floyd and the Rolling Stones and the Beatles. That just goes to show you how much a community can that's how much a community's unique traits can prosper if given enough passion. There is a part of me that's for Fishman's though, because I like Fishman's. This is probably my favorite thing by Fishman's. It just seems like a lot of passion for one specific thing, and it's just, I don't know, it's interesting. This is Daniel Johnston. What is it called? I mean, everybody can recognize that picture, surely. Daniel Johnston. Hi, how are you? Yes. Normally it says the name, so I wouldn't feel so stupid looking it up, but it's just the alien instead. This was, obviously, popularized by Kurt Cobain and him wearing the shirt, and it's got its own legend and notoriety. A classic outsider album, but otherwise it's just good lo-fi rock / acoustic folk or whatever you want to call it. Give it a C. I don't have much to say about it. It's not I can't recall much about it, honestly. But I have listened to it before, so. You know what I can recall? Fucking Pink Moon in S. Magnifique. This album is it's the best quiet boy sitting there plinking his guitar and singing about the trees shit that you will ever listen to. The tunings and melodies that Nick Drake made for this album are so unique sounding. If you're like me and you've listened to a lot of acoustic guitars plonking over sullen crooning, you, I think, can tell the difference between even the bass of a song, the you can tell if a song's in standard or if it's in an open tuning, or you can tell how much it's one of the things I like about solo accompaniment is that you can really pick at the intricacies of the music, and with Nick Drake it's a delight to do that, because he was just he's so good at both of the things. And songs like Road, with like that really distinct bass line, or not bass line, but like a low part that he's doing with his thumb, with the other with the higher melody that's done with his other fingers. It's just enchanting. I don't know any other way to put it. It's like a forest nymph sprinkled some fairy dust on me. It's so good. I'm probably not in the mental space to finish this, but I kind of just want to, because I'm at part 3 at this point. How much more can I speak about fucking albums? Little Ugly Mane, Mr. Thug Isolation. This is like the classic Memphis rap revival album. This is like the one that everybody probably has listened to if they found their way into that. And it also has the added benefit, or like the added characteristic of, unlike Memphis rap, which was mostly just like the 3-6 Mafia talking about like whatever shit they were talking about. Lil Ugly Mane is a lot more introspective and sad, therefore catches the eye of many a 20-something that is now shit posting on a music website. So all that to say that it's a B. I think it's pretty good. I don't know. Maybe a C, actually. I'm not gonna try and say that it's like my shit, actually, but it is good. A C still means like I can see something in this, so hopefully that didn't, I would have to listen to it again. It's been a while. And also I've listened to other Memphis rap stuff, like, God, what is that album called? Hold on. The Devil's Playground, by Koopsta. That one's a fucking strange ass experience, listening to that and being like, oh, this is Mr. Thug Isolation, just like 10 years before, like 15 years before even. That's weird. So yeah, that's I think, Lil Ugly Mane earned his place in the hearts of many, though. It's not just a gimmick. I think that much can be gleaned from like Oblivion Access and Third Side of Tape and stuff. Those are really singular albums in their own right. So yeah, mumbling. I'm doing it a lot. Let's continue onward. We got Sophie's something. I have it. Let me just look it up. Oil of Every Pearl's Uninsides. I'm gonna give this a C. I wanted to like it. I like Sophie quite a bit. She's a fascinating, electronic musician, and was probably the first musician in the what do you want to call it, like the PC music, or like deconstructed club, whatever you want to fucking call it, Um, she was the first one that caught my attention with stuff like, Lemonade and Bip. This album has some songs that are similarly quality to those. It also has a lot of stuff that I don't attach to at all. And honestly, just kind of felt like this could have just been an EP. And I've heard, the like concepts that people have brought up about the album, that it's kind of like a, it's like a thorough exploration of one topic just kind of sprinkled throughout. Sorry, I'm trying to look it up, and then I forgot how to write words. But yeah, it's a good album. I don't know. Anyway, I think I feel okay just calling it like an okay album. This is Beyonce's Lemonade. Fuck, I don't remember much about Lemonade. Damn it. I might just abstain. See, here's the thing. When the album first came out and I heard that it had like a music video accompaniment, I was like, oh, I should go watch that music video, right? And I didn't, because it was on fucking Tidal or whatever, and I didn't have Tidal and I didn't want Tidal. So I put it off, and then I listened to the album like way after the fact because I kind of got distracted. And then apparently it's out now, and that was the last time that I listened to it, was like when it first came out. So yeah, I'm just gonna abstain. I don't want to give it a judgment if literally I have like one listen under my belt. My Chemical Romance's The Black Parade. This is surprising to see. Maybe not if you're deep into the community, but I'm gonna give it a B. I like this album. I like My Chemical Romance's like the creative burst that they had after the album that kind of put them on the map, whose name is escaping me. Like the Black Parade, and then the Killjoy stuff. I actually think I might prefer Killjoy, but this album is cool, and I'm not gonna be hateful against it, because we've all listened to Teenagers or the Black Parade itself, or Dead's a good song. Those are it was anthemic to a generation, as much as you might not want to admit that if you're a curmudgeon. It meant a lot to a specific group of people, and I, as a quick aside, I kind of really like macabre shit. This sort of like, My Chemical Romance, like Hot Topic-y, like Alice in Wonderland, Invader Sim stuff. I like that stuff a lot, and so whenever I think about this album, I usually just feel happy. So that's how it is. Kid Cudi's Man on the Moon. I used to have this album. Haven't listened to it in a good long while. Kind of surprised that it's here. I didn't realize it was something that people really felt strongly about. Man on the Moon, The End of Day is what it's called. I don't know, like a C, I guess. This came out at a time when every like stoner kid in my in my school was like talking about Kid Cudi a lot. He inspired a generation of the kind of people that I didn't want to be in the same room with. So I kind of have this anti-affinity to him. But, you know, like Day and Night's a good song. Modern classic. I like Solo Dolo. Heart of a Lion. But, you know, just like over conceptual psychedelic rap with a guy that's not very good at singing, but also doesn't have like any sort of like major feature in his voice that makes me want to like root for him. I once reviewed Indicud, his third album, the one that came out after he I think he left Good Music or something like that. I don't remember the story honestly, but I do remember he produced it basically all on his own, besides a few tracks. And let me tell you, that album sucks fuck. I hate it. I slammed it. And that was like the last album I reviewed, so it was like my going away party was to say that I hated this album. And I mean, given, you know, Satellite Flight and Speed and Bullet to Heaven, I feel like I'm on the right side of history. Even if Kids See Ghost is apparently like the best album ever made or something. Whatever people want to give that album. It's fine though. Kid Cudi can live on his own, and I'm happy for him. Let's see. Oh, it's what we're listening to right now. It's William Basinski's The Disintegration Loops. This is probably part 1 specifically. I think we're listening to part 4, right? No, part 3, part 2. I just said all of them. I'm so confident in my answer. Oh, we were listening to 2, and now we're listening to 3. And this is what will carry us off onto the end. William Basinski's Disintegration Loops. I'm going to give this a B. Here's why. The concept is the concept. If you don't know the story behind this album, the thing that I think gives it its notoriety, or at least it's like a controversy, is that William Basinski was recovering his tape loops that he had of old music, and they started to get basically destroyed as he was digitizing them, or just, you know, whatever he was doing, like transposing them from one tape to another. And he just so happened to be doing this on 9/11, and he lived in New York at the time, so he was able to witness it from his rooftop. And he actually, the album cover is his own footage of the New York City skyline being covered in ash. So this album has quite a bit of heft to its concept, if you can understand what I mean by that. It's a little heady, or it's a little, not heady, heavy. So yeah, it's fucking yeesh. Honestly though, I just like it because I like tape music. I like the idea of putting something in a loop and then kind of like letting it create its own, you know, like its own, like taking something and looping it in such a way that it kind of becomes like an ambient piece or becomes a sample for like something, you know, like that's inherently something that I enjoy doing and listening to and hearing about, and it's just one of my favorite things. So an album that's a good one of those is going to be well regarded by me. I haven't listened to all 4 Disintegration loops, honestly. They're all like at least 70 something minutes, and there are 4, so all in all it's 296 minutes of music. So yeah, it's a lot, but I'm not that. From what I've heard, it's a fine piece of music. It's not my favorite tape music. You should go listen to Eckhart Eller's Plays compilation. It's a compilation of like 4 or 5 EPs that Eckhart Ehlers did. I could be destroying his name. I'm pretty sure it's not pronounced the way that I'm saying it. But you should go listen to that if you're interested in tape music, because I think Plays John Cassavetes Part 2 specifically is one of my favorite pieces of music ever. It's beautiful, and it's a loop. So is this. I just like that more, and I wanted to shout it out while I could. I see a string of albums that are going to be pretty quick cut and dries, and honestly it's getting easier and easier now that I'm looking at this, because we got a lot of shit that I can just kind of like open and close, crack the knuckles. I'm gonna probably go over an hour, but it's fine. We got Merzbau's Pulse Demon. This is getting a D. I like Merzbau, actually, just not this album. This album's fucking dog shit. I don't know why people... Actually, I do know why people like this. It's because it got reviewed by Pitchfork at one point and has gained a legacy that no album, especially this one, needs. It's noise. It's noise music. Merzbau, I think, kind of has like a notoriety to being very kind of like a almost just like crunchy white noise. And this album is probably the reason why that happened, and that sucks because there are at least 4 to 5 Merzbau albums that I think are really, really good that don't sound anything like this. Cycle is really good, and it kind of has like a much more organic sound. This Pulse Demon sounds like digital, just like crunchy noise, and it's like 60 minutes or something like that. It's like nobody should do that to themselves. Dharma is like genuinely unpleasant, like scary music, and it doesn't sound like this. Amlux is almost like drony and ambient-ish, but very aggressive still. I think that's good. That's 3 albums that aren't Pulse Demon that you can go listen to. Please and thank you. This is I actually had to look this up. Like, I took a screenshot of this and reverse image searched it because I was like, what the fuck is this? It's the Katamari soundtrack, which I had never seen the cover for, which I should have seen that coming, honestly. It could have been some, I don't know, 70s psychedelic album. I would have been none the wiser. Or like some 1990s super underground, like, I don't know, Flaming Lips sound alike. But this is instead an S, because the Katamari soundtrack is damn near flawless. It is one of the best soundtracks. It's not my favorite, but it's like top 3. I think number 1 is probably, Chrono Trigger, or actually, here's the order it goes in. Number 1, Streets of Rage 2. Because Streets of Rage 2 is a banger for all ages. Streets of Rage 2 could have been released on a CD with no musical attachment, and I would still think it's a fucking excellent album. The addition of it being a Sega Genesis accompaniment is icing on the cake, as far as I'm concerned. Number 2 is probably this. I recently replayed Katamari, and I was like still delighted by the music. It's been fucking 15 years, and it still works perfectly. I love that these songs are like there are very few moments in Katamari where you're listening to music that's like repeating, or not repeating, but like looping in that like traditional video game sense of like, oh well, we just have to connect the song to another part of the song so that it doesn't sound like it's just a song. That doesn't happen a lot in video games, and Katamari does a lot to alleviate that, and I think it works out so well because combined with the fact that the levels are timed and it's like a fun little like arcade game, but also an incredible expression of consumerism but also Glee. It's just a good game and it's a good soundtrack. That's all I have to say. On the exact opposite end of the spectrum is this fucking thing. This is Good Morning, Good Night. Good Morning, Good Night by Sachiko M. Toshi... Hold on. I had it for a second, but there it is. Sachiko M, Toshimaru Nakamura, and Otomo Yoshihide. It's like a double album, probably about an hour and a half of Onkyo, lowercase, electroacoustic improvisation, whatever you want to call it. It's so slight and so tiny and so imperceptible, but yet it is a surprisingly engaging listen. I'm gonna give this a C. Onkyo and like that super avant-garde music, the stuff that like even the highest patricians of the landscape have trouble like categorizing and giving a platform to. This album is kind of you know what, I'm gonna change the music. It's kind of it's doing the disintegration part of the loops a little too much for my tastes. This is background music, and it's distracting me. Anyway, what was I saying? It's a weird album. It makes me feel like emotions that few albums have, which is like, this hurts. Like, there are tones on this album that just pierce my ears and make me sad, but also like it's so slight and you can kind of hear them like just like working off of each other in like these very, very minor ways. Very, very minor ways. Very minor ways. Like it, like so small. So small. It's like it's honestly not music. And I don't mean to use that in a disparaging way. I mean to use that in the way of like, it's not music because it's sound. It's just sound. It's sound that's collected in a time, in like in a like time contextual sense. I kind of like it though. A lot of people don't. A lot of people get very mad about this. I think it's too funny to get mad at. This is a Lord's melodrama. I haven't listened to it yet. Sorry. I've heard it's good. I like Lord of the pop stars or pop people that have gotten famous over the past 6 or 7 years. Her potential was the one that seemed the most apparent. So I'm sure it's good. I just haven't listened to it. I haven't listened to it. This is Pink Floyd's Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon. I'm sure you recognize it. I'm gonna give this a C. I like it more than Animals. I like it more than The Wall. Do I like it that much more than either of those? Not really. Pink Floyd just doesn't really do it for me. The Avalanche, Since I Left You. This is a B. Similar vibes that DJ Shadow and Burial and stuff gave me. It's like a early, informative, electronic / sample-based music that made me explore the possibilities of sound. But also, this one's probably the most listenable out of all of these that I've mentioned. And benefits from that. We got Fishman's Long Season. I'm gonna also give this a B alongside the live album. It was a good album. It's weird, but it's like enjoyable to listen to. It's that's like my favorite kind of music. It's just like, this is light and kind of weird and doesn't like align with typical musicality, but like you don't get any sort of like, I don't get a feeling of malice or pretentiousness from it. I literally just think it's people having fun and enjoying themselves, and that's kind of where this album sits for me. One of my favorite albums of all time is Super Silence 1-3. It's a triple album. It's actually more of a compilation, so I kind of give it some slack because it's you can just listen to one of the discs and be like, that was one of the discs of 3. If I want to listen to the other ones, I can, but later. Whereas double albums are like, nah, you're halfway done, homie. But yeah, it's also electroacoustic improvisation, like Good Morning, Good Night was, and Fishman's isn't necessarily improvisational, but it is very it's a very liquid sounding album. It's like it's there's a lot of like, not ambient, but like a dub, like dub isn't like the reggae subgenre. There's dubbish kind of stuff. There's also some dreamy stuff, and it's interesting, and I like it. It's another thing of like RYM just kind of like holding on to Fishman's and like really causing them to get noticed by more people, which is a respectable goal. I think it's cool that they do that. What is never mind. You'll never get the end of that thought. This is Gorillaz Demon Days. Gorillaz Demon Days also gets a B. I like the self-titled hint more. Mostly because of Del the Funky Homo Sapien being just the best. But this has, MF. This is probably where most people learned about MF Doom. If I had to take a shot in the dark, it's also probably where a lot of people learned about the Gorillaz in general, because, you know, Feel Good Inc. was a very popular song, and from there, Dare was a popular song. Dare is one of my favorite Gorillaz songs. El Manana has a music video. I don't know how much that was syndicated, but I've seen it, so it got to me. But yeah, there's some stuff in the middle of this album that I'm not huge on. Also, Dirty Harry is probably one of my lesser favorite like singles from them, which is weird because it has what's his face from Far Side, Boogie Brown, and I like Far Side a lot. It's just that song didn't do as much for me as some of the other ones on the album. Gorillaz, you know, they're this generation's Beatles. I don't think that's weird to say. Maybe it's weird to say. I don't know. Maybe I'm taking that back. Maybe it's too late for me to make shit statements like that. Anyway, they're the millennial Beatles. That's fun. That's a fun thing to say. I made those words come out of my mouth. Anyway, Kid A's Radiohead, Kid A, Kidhead, Radio A. This album is awesome. It's not as good as In Rainbows, but I think this is like a lot of people's second favorite Radiohead album, because it's usually like, oh, my favorite is XYZ, because, you know, it's I you know, it's the one I grew up with, or it's the one that, you know, means the most to me. But then Kid A is like the one that people fall back on if they're like, but Kid A is a fucking great album though. It's almost certainly the most unique album a popular band has put out in the 21st century. You know, like, I can't think of another band from the 21st century that had that many eyes on them, only to just completely betray expectations. If you can think of one, feel free to add it in the comments. Hit that subscribe and like button, and put in the comments below what your expectation defying rock musicians of the 2000s were. Kanye West's My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy gets a B. This album is like I said, my favorite Kanye West album's Late Registration, which I would probably put an S or A. It would be a fight. But this album, I think, sits pretty comfortably at B for me. Its highs are outrageously high, and its lows, instead of the lows of College Dropout, which are like fucking embarrassing piles of garbage. Like, College Dropout is such a relic these days, whereas My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, its lows are just kind of not as impressive to me. They're not like booming. They're not like hitting me in the face like, you know, the highs are. But the highs, you know, like Power, like a song that I've heard a million times and yet will happily listen to again purely on the basis that it's like one of the most luxurious hip-hop songs ever made. It's got like so much fucking character, and it samples King Crimson, which is it's like, I don't know, that was very cool to me when I was 15 or however old I was. But then, you know, also like Devil in a New Dress. My favorite Kanye West song is All of the Lights. Trust me, I did a Kanye West March Madness bracket, and that's what came out at the top, so I can say that with confidence. All of the Lights is my favorite Kanye West song. I have science backing me. But yeah, Devil in a New Dress is fucking probably his best song of that, like, you know, like, I don't even know where I'm going with this. Never mind. He has at least a few songs since 2010, which are kind of like him talking about a relationship and being like, you know, this is what happened in our relationship. Or like, this is why you love me, even though we hate each other. That's his best version of that. You know, Bound to being another example of that. Bound to, my favorite song off of Yeezus, easily. But then, you know, I honestly can't remember The Life of Pablo well enough to tell you if there's an equivalent on that. Ultralight Beam's a good song, in my opinion. We're gonna give this a it almost could go down to B. This is very low A, which probably comes as a surprise to maybe some folks, because I think I've sung my praises of this album plenty in my life. It was an important album to me as a youth, as it probably was for a lot of people. It has some of the most, you know, like, eye-opening, like, music experiences that I can think of. You know, like Two-Headed Boy, when you first hear that and you hear how he's singing and the lyrics that he's saying and like the drive of the guitar and all that sort of stuff, it really makes you, if you're like me and that was like the first album of that kind that you've heard, it's a very important moment. Here's the thing though, this album is kind of, it's for that age bracket. It's your discovery album. It's the album that you listen to when you learn about indie music for the first time and you're like, whoa, this is music. It has, you know, songs like "Oh Comely" where he's talking about like semen and shit, and you're like, whoa, he said the word semen and meant it as art, and you're like, that is, like, can I do that? And then yeah, it's just like he's talking about Anne Frank, and Anne Frank, like, that's probably like the best reference point that I can think of is like the album is talking about Anne Frank's like situation, which, if you're like me and you read The Diary of Anne Frank when you were a kid in a class, even though you probably shouldn't have read something that fucking bleak as an assignment, I digress. You connect to that, like the love triangle that is you, this album, and The Diary of Anne Frank. Like, there's like a cyclical relationship there, and you connect to the every like the dramatic angst of Jeff Mangum's lyrics and the situation that Anne Frank was in the way that she talked about her experiences as a teenager alongside tragedy, and your seemingly significantly less dramatic life, although you're like, I was in love too. All of that blends together to be the perfect 15-year-old bait. But I'm 24 now, and I listen to some of those songs and I feel a little weird because he's talking about how much he loves, you know, a child. I mean, not, it's like, I don't think the album's pedophilic, but it is, there is some, like, there are some emotions there that cross, that don't make themselves known until you're a little bit older and you're like, huh, well, this man was singing about this, huh? Whereas when you're a kid, you're probably just thinking about how much it relates to you. That was a lot of words. I'm sorry. All this to say that it's an album that was important to me. Regardless of how I feel about it in the future. Like Ghost is a song that doesn't do much for me. Both of the instrumental tracks don't do much for me. Oh Comely was once my favorite song because it was like a 7-minute like dirge, and when I was a teenager that shit appealed to me greatly. That song I think has kind of lost some of itself over time. Two-Headed Boy Part 1 and Part 2 are still some of my favorite songs. The sentiment of In the Airplane Over the Sea, the song that is still gets to me. It's a great album. That's all I have to say about that. I'm going to talk significantly less about this one because I don't like it. It's the embodiment of the vaporwave that I don't like. Same with Blank Banshee. It's overly... There's probably some Vectroid / Macintosh Plus / whatever else her aliases are. There's probably something in her discography that really appeals to me. But I think this album is like... It has so much stuff on it that I don't want to listen to. Like, the thing about Echo Jams that I think makes it so much better than these two is that it's like you listen to some of those things and you're like, I want to know what this original version of this is because I just am genuinely curious what it is. Like, I want to listen to it forwards or full speed, and then I want to listen to it slowed down, and I want to listen to it without these effects. What comes after the chorus? I did that for 3 songs, I think. And it was like the one Jamie Foxx song. I was like, oh, I'm kind of into this. What is this? And then I found out it was a Jamie Foxx song, and I thought that was funny. Diana Ross, of course. You find out the 420 Lisa Koshy, like the notorious song from this. You pick that up. I think that's like the best thing on this album, because when you listen to it slow-mo, you don't realize what it is, and then you listen to it full speed and you're like, oh, it's a Diana Ross song from the 80s. Whereas slow-mo, it kind of like the possibility space is still there. And I think that's kind of what Macintosh Plus is going for as a concept. Is like, I'm gonna take these like kitschy, gimmicky spaces and kind of try and form something greater out of them. Whether or not it's successful is to be debated. This is Abbey Road by the Beatles. I'm actually going to do all 3 of these Beatles albums together because that seems logical. We're going to go C, we're going to go B, and we're going to go D. The Beatles got lucky. They have 4 albums here that only one of them I was able to shit talk. If the White Album was here, I think it would also be in D. Plus any of their stuff before Rubber Soul, I would put at D, just because it's boring and kitschy and silly. Not that this is gold either. Lonely Hearts Club Band, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band is my favorite of their albums, I think, because A Day in the Life is like a fucking stellar thing. The song Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band is great. It just is a really well constructed piece of pop, like rock pop or whatever you want to label it as. It's really aggressively constructed, and unlike some of their albums where they kind of were going a lot more loosey goosey, not to make a pun on Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, when they're loosey goosey, they sometimes don't have a shit filter. Which brings me to Rubber Soul. This is kind of the first time that they were trying to do like their serious business stuff, where they're like, oh, we discovered, I don't know, weed or something. I don't know. Well, actually, Rubber Soul's probably a bad example for this, because I just think Rubber Soul's boring and has a lot of stuff on it that I'm like, this is just like a slightly more successful version of the shit that people cast away because it's, you know, like their first 3 albums or 4 albums or whatever, you know, people don't like talk about those nearly as much as these, because they're like, oh, they're just, you know, like a couple of lads playing pop music, and, you know, they're singing like she loves me, yeah. Rubber Soul is just them doing that, but with like a couple more successes. Like Norwegian Wood's a good song, but like, are you really gonna try and tell me that, like, I don't know, Think for Yourself's good, or The Word? Do you even remember The Word? I don't. I'm Looking Through You is kind of a bland ass song, although I'm sure that's a song that people try and say is good. And then Abbey Road sits somewhere in the middle. Abbey Road is kind of a weird one because it's very John forward, or not John, Paul forward. And Paul's probably my favorite Beatle in terms of just pure talent. I like his voice a lot. I like his good songs. And, you know, there are good songs on here by him, you know. That medley at the end is great. Oh Darling, I like quite a bit. But it's also, you know, Maxwell Silverhammer's on here. Octopus's Garden's also on here. 2 pretty silly songs that I don't want to listen to. Like, if I'm like, hey, I want to listen to a classic rock album that, you know, like, I'm, you know, I want to listen to the best that music had to offer in the late 60s. If I come across Maxwell Silverhammer, I'm gonna get pissed because it's not a good song. But then, you know, Come Together is a good song. A little, maybe not my favorite these days, but still good. The lyrics are bollocks, as they would say. But like the mood that it invokes, which is like that super good bass, the boom doom doo doo, and then just that classic drum, it's very good. And also I Want You, She's So Heavy is like my favorite John song, probably. It's proto-prog, or not really proto, it was like 1969, so I guess it was expected, but like, you know, that song whips ass. All in all, Beatles, there you go. That's the Beatles. We're gonna be going fast at this point because I'm tired of doing this. I've been here for a while. This is the Swans is Sun Be Kind. To Be Kind, not Sun Be Kind. Where did I get Sun? Oh, because of the song Bring the Sun. This album's long. It has some of their most interesting, like, sonic experimentations. But, you know, my opinion on Swans is kind of withered as time's gone on. 2014 was probably the last time that I listened to them with any genuine interest, so I'm probably just going to put that at C along with soundtracks. If they had, like, I don't know, like The Great Annihilator on here, I would probably give that, you know, its props. But they don't, so. Wish You Were Here, D. Here's the thing. Wish You Were Here, I think in concept, or like as a concept, is like my favorite one because it's like, it's pretty focused, and it's them being as unsilly as they can be, which they get pretty silly in my opinion. Like, even like their dystopia rock operas are pretty kitschy. But like Shine On You Crazy Diamond is a pretty miserable slog. It's long as hell and doesn't deserve the time it has. But Wish You Were Here is a classic song, one of my favorites of the youth. Welcome to Machine is like, it's okay, and I'm like missing only one song at this point. Like, Smoke a Cigar, Light a Cigar, something cigar. Do I have it? Let's find out. I do have a cigar. Thank you. Yeah, Have a Cigar. I don't remember much about. So it's like just Wish You Were Here, and maybe some parts of Shine On You Crazy Diamond that like bring this album above a certain pedigree. If Metal was on here, I would give it probably like a C or a B. I like Metal, but it ain't here. Atom Heart Mother I also quite enjoy, because that's like them being silly, but like it's fun. Pink Floyd's The Wall is them being silly, and it's like incredibly pretentious. And then Animals is them not being silly, and it's I don't want to listen to them. Or here we have Wires, Chairs Missing. I like Wire a lot. I'm a little sad that Pink Flag isn't represented here, because it also wasn't represented in the top 100. I guess people just don't like Pink Flag, even though it's a fucking brilliant album. Where did I put 154? It's A. I'll give this a B. It's probably my least favorite of the three like main Wire albums. Not necessarily because I don't like it, but just more so because I can't really recall it as well as 154, which I've listened to a lot, and Pink Flag, which I've listened to a lot, and even like what is it, Send, I've listened to, not as much as Chairs Missing probably, but I've listened to that. I've listened to What's His Face's solo album, which people kind of refer to as the fourth Wire album. Yeah. Chairs Missing is good though. I wish I had more to say, but I can't think of anything off the top of my head. And I'm getting antsy. I want to leave. My Bloody Valentine, Loveless. This gets an A. You would think that I would give it an S because it's one of my, like, I've sung its praises quite often, and I don't think there's a single song on it that I don't like. But I don't know. It's just it almost ruined shoegaze for me, because it's a very particular album with a lot of very fine detail, and I don't want to necessarily say that detail equals good, but whenever bands are just kind of doing like the standard shoegaze stuff, it doesn't do anything for me anymore. So I almost want to punish this album for being like, I don't know, injecting me with a sense of it like distracts me more than it does it like envelop me. Does that make sense? I don't know. I am continuing on. Fucking go listen to Shonen Knife's cover of When You Sleep, though. It's beautiful, and it's better than the original, in my opinion. This is Travis Scott's Rodeo. Don't you worry about that rainbow. Don't you let out that antidote. Popping pills is all we know. I haven't listened to this outside of that. Actually, that's not true. I've listened to, I don't know. I'm looking at 3500 sounds familiar. 90210 sounds familiar. I'm gonna give this an abstain, but I would probably like it. I don't know. Weezer's Pinkerton. This also gets an E. If there's anything that I like less than, or if there's anything that I like just as or dislike as much as I dislike black metal, particularly by shitheads, it's emo music done by shitheads. And boy, I know this album's supposed to be enjoyable because it's like raw and personal, but usually whenever somebody says that an album's raw and personal, it usually just means that the people behind it, in this instance it's Rivers Cuomo, but you know, there are other examples that you could probably think of, that people are like, this album's good because it's real and shows somebody at their most vulnerable. This album probably should have just not come out because it's a fucking mess. And like anybody that says that it's of like like, this is an album that if you have like a dying love for it and you think it's really incredible and you don't qualify that, I'm suspect, because there's a lot of shit on it that is pure bad, and like pure bad. Put on top of that the fact that I think Weezer's pretty mediocre, it becomes a real shitstorm of just unpleasantries. It gets E. Thank you. This is Death Grips, The Powers That Be double album. I don't like disc 1, but I like disc 2. So, what do I do? I'm gonna put it at a C, I guess. Yeah. Okay. This is Alice in Chains, Jar of Flies. It's a B, C. It gets a C. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of Alice in Chains. I guess I respect the the musicianship. Lance Staley, like the main guy, you know, foundational for that particular style of music. It's just that style of music doesn't appeal to me. This is a Tribe Called Quest. Thank you for your service. Something. Do I have it? No, I don't. I haven't listened to this before, so I'm gonna abstain. And with that fart of an ending, we have 5, 10, 14 albums that I abstained from voting onto the tier list. But let's take a quick gander at the tier itself. In S Plus, we have 5 albums, just 5 albums. A nice round 5. We got the Beach Boys' Pet Sounds. We got Doolittle by the Pixies, which I listened to Doolittle today. It should be like here. I love this album. Enter the Wu-Tang's 36 Chambers. Enter the Wu-Tang's 36 Chambers by the Wu-Tang Clan. King Crimson and the Court of the Crimson King. And Talking Heads, Remain in Light, get S+. These all deserve it. I'm not going to list out all the other ones, but like, let's take a quick little gander. You know, we got J Dilla. This seems about right. I also listened to this today, and I feel like this is a good spot for it. Okay. We got A, just a bunch of good-ass albums that I like quite a bit. I feel weird having these so close to each other. It feels... it feels too MU-y. Makes me think about being 15 and being on 4chan, and I don't like thinking about that. Raging Against the Machine, yeah. Any major gripes that I have with this? No, not really. This seems appropriate. C. Yeah, this seems about right. You know what? I'm gonna put. No. I was gonna put Swans down, and then I saw Mr. Thug Isolation, and I was like, should I put that? Where should I put that? And I guess C is a good enough spot. I think it makes sense that C is the one that I'm feeling the most ambivalent about, you know? D. This all seems appropriate. Yeah. And then E. Fuck Weezer. Fuck Burzum. Going out on a high note. Let's turn this music off. I almost fell asleep. Goodbye. Final.